Well, my name is Alex Cotoia, and I am a candidate for the District 2 seat on the Board of County Commissioners for Doñana, which encompasses the entirety of the South Valley, pretty much, from Chamberino all the way down to San Sunland Park and Santa Teresa Chaparral also. I'm running predominantly because I see that our communities in the South Valley are neglected and in need of repair and remediation. When I say neglected, it seems that the majority of the funding, at least from the county level, goes up north, and we're too often ignored down south. We have dilapidated infrastructure, there's no question about it. Our roadways are breaking up, we don't have sufficient lighting in many areas. And by Anthony Elementary School, we don't even have a sidewalk for people to safely traverse that territory when they're walking to and from school. So my couple of issues that I care about in the campaign, number one are accountability and transparency. I'm not the consummate insider, I don't have connections to Sunland Park, so I think we need a fresh voice on the county commission who's not really beholden to any one political faction in the South Valley. And as you get to know some of the people in the South Valley, that's predominantly what you find. There are these remnants of political machines that are holding on to power. I just think it's time for someone new to come in there who's not tied to that establishment and stand up for ordinary working people.
My name is Dr. David Garcia. Most of my colleagues and friends call me Dr. G. That's because I was a school administrator. I am married, and I've been a lifelong Democrat for many, many years. I've held many positions. I'm really from northern New Mexico, but I've lived here 22 years, around that time. I came to be an administrator for the Gadsden Independent School District.
Okay, and why are you running for county commission?
Well, really, I'm not looking for this to be a career position. I retired in May after 36 years of public education. Out of those 36 years, 33 were in school administration. I've been an elementary principal, a mid-school principal, a high school principal, and I've been a superintendent of schools. I think I'm well qualified, and I have a lot of interactions with the southern part of the state, which happens to be Sunland, Chaparral, in those communities, Anthony, in District 2.
The first question, and this deals with the situation at the county jail. What do you think the county's response should be to the $22 million judgment against the county in the Stephen Slevin lawsuit?
You know, Scott Kraling is a very good friend of mine, and we've talked extensively about this subject. He said what was in place in 2002 is not so now. And in fact, we've had a number of individuals, I think he said with the American Civil Liberties Union, who have come in and kind of analyzed the situation. And they say the county is improving from when they previously were. There's no doubt that we weren't adequately providing basic medical services and health care services to those individuals, like the gentleman who was awarded $22 million in the early portion of the decade. But I think the county is on the right trajectory, and it's just going to be building from there and kind of monitoring the situation at the detention center.
The question is, what should the county's response be to the $22 million judgment against it in that case?
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know too much information about it other than what I see in the news media. I have attended several meetings of the County Board of Commission, and I know in the things that I've heard is that there's been great improvements, and I think it's going to be challenging on how to deal with the $20 million that is a lawsuit. But one thing for sure, I've seen the present county commissioners, and I've been very impressed with their professionality and the way they are dealing things. I think that they really are giving it a good attempt to do the best that they can.
Second question is, are you familiar with the Vision 20 plan that the city and county worked on jointly, and the county recently passed that plan, and if so, what are your thoughts about it?
I don't know too much information about that, I'll be honest with you. I've heard parts of it, and one of my stances has always been, as an administrator, you always have to be very organized, do a lot of research, and especially when you're working for the county, because it incorporates a lot of its population, so you got to get a lot of input. And I think that the present county commissioners are doing that. They're getting some some good input.
Looking at the Vision 2040 plan that is under discussion, what do you think the top priorities for that plan should be, and what would you like to add to what has already been included in there?
Well, I like the plan because it's a comprehensive approach. It takes housing and transportation and economic development and infrastructure. But I think that really our emphasis needs to be, especially in the South Valley, is on economic development, but workforce development as well. And I was talking to Jerry Pacheco at the Border Industrial Alliance, and we had an extensive discussion about the need to align our workforce development needs with economic development needs. And by that, he mentioned the fact that about 32% of the population in the South Valley lacks a basic high school education or GED. And the only way employers are going to come into the region is if we remediate that problem and get these people back in school and get them retrained. So it's really a kind of a catch-22. So it begins with educating, and I think it ends with economic development. So we need to do a better job of that.
Okay. The county recently passed a noise ban, and that sort of gets into a broader question about how far do you go into providing restrictions that will make it easier sometimes for people to live with their neighbors, but at the same time, that's a lot of times the reason why people don't live in the city is because they don't like those kinds of restrictions. And so how do you balance those two things?
I think it's always a delicate balance, but I'm generally a supporter of the noise ordinance because there are areas or pockets of the South, and I have a 4-month-old daughter, so maybe I have a skewed view because when music is playing at 2 o'clock in the morning, it's very hard to maintain your composure. But I think, for the most part, I think there is that proper balance, but I think the noise ordinance would be a positive development because we need people to be respectful of their neighbors.
The county is considering a noise ban. That's something that sort of brings up an interesting balance because a lot of people say that's the reason they moved to the county as opposed to living in the city, so that they can do some things that are maybe noisier or dustier or things that wouldn't be allowed in the city. How do you balance that while at the same time balance the rights of a person's neighbor to be able to have some peace and quiet?
That is very important because first of all, you got to consider your citizens, and there is no reason why there should be loud noise, say after a certain time of day and night. And I'll give you a good. I'm from Chaparral. Sometimes we hear the explosions very loud. That's military, so there's nothing we can do about that. But if you have a noisy neighbor that is playing their stereo at, say, past a certain hour, say 11 o'clock, that is not something that is welcome by the neighbors. And I think that there needs to be a balance in anything that we do. I think of all the cities in my district, I think Sunland has a noise ordinance. Other than that, Chaparral doesn't, Anthony doesn't, and I don't think any of the other communities except Sunland has a noise ordinance. And the one in Sunland, there are certain times that, and then of course you would have to go to the city and get permission if you were going to have some kind of activity that would be kind of loud. Say like a politician is a good thing. In my days, there was a politicians that would use a car and loudspeakers to be running their propaganda and doing their politics. There's an appropriate time for that too. But then there would be maybe a process where a person would go and tell the city of Sunland, Anthony, or the county, I'm going to be holding this activity. Is that okay? And get some kind of permit for it. But I think a lot of people, what they're looking for is unwanted noise, like dogs barking, loud stereo music, that really disturbs people when they really should be sleeping or that kind of thing.